I remember the exact moment the silence began. It was a Tuesday evening in early autumn, the kind where the leaves outside my kitchen window were just starting to turn gold and the air carried that crisp hint of change. I'd been stirring a pot of soup on the stove, the steam rising like little whispers, when I reached for my phone to call her, my daughter, Emily. She was 28 then, living 2 hours away in the city, chasing her dreams as a graphic designer. Our calls were our lifeline, quick chats about her week, my garden, the little things that kept us close. But that day, the phone rang and rang, straight to voicemail. "Hey mom, it's me, leave a message." Her voice, bright and familiar, but no answer. I tried again the next day and the day after. Nothing. A week turned into 2, and the quiet started to settle in my chest like a heavy fog. I'd sit in my armchair by the window, cup of tea cooling in my hands, staring at the screen, willing it to light up. Was she okay? Busy? Upset? The questions swirled, but the silence answered none of them. It wasn't just the missed calls, it was the absence of her laughter in my ear, the way she'd say, "Love you, Mom," before hanging up. That silence grew, wrapping around my days, making the house feel emptier than it had since she left for college years ago. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Life gets hectic, people forget. But deep down, a small ache bloomed, the kind that comes from loving someone so much, it hurts when they're out of reach. I thought back to the last time we'd spoken, 2 weeks earlier, a casual conversation about her new apartment. She'd sounded happy, excited even. What had changed? As the days stretched, I found myself walking to the mailbox more often, hoping for a letter, a card, anything. But the slot stayed empty, just like my inbox. The silence wasn't just quiet, it was a wall, built brick by unspoken word, and I was on the wrong side of it. That fog in my chest thickened with each passing evening. I'd light a candle on the dinner table, set a place for one, and eat alone, the clock ticking like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. Friends noticed, asked if everything was all right. I'd smile, say yes, she's just busy, but inside the worry gnawed. Mothers know their children in a way no one else does, their joys, their pains, the hidden storms. And this silence felt like a storm brewing, one I couldn't see, but could feel in my bones. It was the day my daughter stopped calling, and in that void, I began a journey I never expected, one through the quiet spaces of love, loss, and the hope that whispers we might find our way back. Looking back, our life together had always been woven with those simple threads of closeness, the kind that make a family feel like home. I was 32 when Emily came into the world, a tiny bundle with my husband's blue eyes and a cry that filled our small house in the suburbs like music. Her father, Tom, and I had met in our early 20s. He was a mechanic with calloused hands and a quiet laugh. I was a school teacher, dreaming of a garden full of flowers. We married young, built a life around weekend barbecues and rainy afternoons reading stories to our girl. Emily was our only child, the light that chased away the shadows of long work days. From the start, she was curious, always asking questions, her little fingers tracing patterns in the dirt as we planted seeds together. Those early years were painted in soft colors, the ones you remember with a smile even on hard days. I'd come home from teaching third graders, my arms full of papers and lesson plans, and there she'd be, waiting at the door with a drawing or a flower she'd picked from the yard. "Mommy, look what I made," she'd say, her voice high and eager. Tom would ruffle her hair, call her a little artist, and we'd sit at the kitchen table, the smell of fresh bread baking in the oven, wrapping around us like a hug. It was in those moments that I felt the deepest kind of peace, the certainty that love like this could carry us through anything. We weren't rich, but we had each other, and that was enough. But life has a way of shifting, doesn't it? Tom passed when Emily was 12, taken suddenly by a heart that gave out too soon. I remember the rain that day, pounding against the windows as I held her close, both of us sobbing in the living room while the world outside blurred into gray. Cancer, they said, hidden and fast. The house felt too big after that, the silence at night heavier than before. Emily and I leaned on each other, two halves of a broken whole. I'd tuck her in, whisper stories about her dad, how he'd dance with me in the kitchen to old records, how he'd teach her to fix a bike chain with patience and a grin. "He loved you so much, Em," I'd say, brushing her hair back. She'd nod, eyes shiny, and we'd hold on, building our days around school plays, soccer games, and the garden that became our sanctuary. As she grew, Emily blossomed into this vibrant young woman, full of dreams that stretched beyond our quiet town. High school brought art classes where her sketches turned heads. College applications filled out late at night with me brewing tea to keep us going. She chose a school 2 hours away, studying graphic design, and I drove her there that first day, the car packed with boxes and her favorite quilt. "I'd call you, right?" I asked as we hugged goodbye in the dorm parking lot, the sun warm on our faces. "Every day, Mom," she promised, her arms tight around me. And she did, at first. Tales of new friends, late-night study sessions, the thrill of city lights. Those calls were my anchor, pulling me through empty evenings when I'd grade papers alone, the clock ticking louder in the quiet. After graduation, she landed that job in the city, a small design firm that lit up her face during our visits. I'd take the train up on weekends, bringing homemade cookies in a tin, and we'd walk the bustling streets, stopping at cafes where steam rose from mugs of coffee. "This is it, Mom, the start of everything," she'd say, her eyes sparkling as she talked about projects and deadlines. Our bond felt unbreakable then, forged in loss and laughter, the kind of mother-daughter love that whispers you're never truly alone. I'd watch her sketch in her tiny apartment, the rain pattering against the window, and feel a swell of pride mixed with that quiet ache of letting go. She was flying, and I was learning to cheer from the ground. Yet, even in those good times, there were hints of the cracks beneath. Emily had always been sensitive, carrying emotions like fragile glass. After Tom died, she'd pull away sometimes, retreating to a room with headphones on, music drowning out the world. I'd knock softly, offer a cup of chamomile tea, and she'd let me in eventually, sharing bits of her worries. "I miss him, Mom. It hurts." We'd sit on her bed, the door closed against the hallway light, and talk until the words eased the pain. As an adult, those moments evolved. Stress from work, a boyfriend that didn't last, the pressure of making it on her own. Once, after a tough day, she called late, voice trembling. "I don't know if I can do this, Mom." I listened, heart aching, reminding her of her strength, the way she'd faced harder storms before. Our routines kept us tethered. Sundays were sacred, her driving down or me going up, sharing meals in my kitchen where the counters still bore faint marks from years of baking together. The smell of apple pie would fill the air, cinnamon sweet and warm, as we'd laugh over old photos, her head on my shoulder. "You're my rock, Mom," she'd say, squeezing my hand. I cherished those visits, the way the house came alive with her presence, the clatter of dishes, her footsteps on the creaky stairs. Even when life pulled her busier, the calls continued, short but steady, like breaths in the night. She'd update me on her latest design. I'd share news from the garden, the roses blooming despite the late frost. It was our rhythm, unspoken but vital. But as the years ticked by, I noticed subtle shifts. Emily's voice grew a touch distant on some calls, pauses longer before she'd respond. Work demands, she said, the city wearing her down. I'd worry quietly, suggest she visit more, but she promised soon, her tone light. Deep down, I wondered if the weight of independence was pressing on her, or if old griefs lingered unhealed. Still, I trusted our love, the foundation we'd built through tears and triumphs. Little did I know, that foundation was about to be tested in ways I couldn't imagine. The setup of our lives, simple, loving, resilient, had prepared me for many things.
but not for the silence that was waiting just around the corner. In the quiet of my days now, reflecting on it all, I see how those years shaped us. The kitchen where we danced to Tom's old tunes, the garden where she'd plant her first seeds, the rainy nights of shared stories, they were the backdrop to a love that felt eternal. Emily wasn't just my daughter. She was my confidant, my joy, the echo of the family we'd lost and rebuilt. As I stirred that soup on that Tuesday afternoon, unaware of the storm ahead, I held on to those memories like lifelines. They were the context of my world, the relationships that defined me. And in the silence that followed, they'd become the map I'd need to find my way through. The days after that first unanswered call blurred into a rhythm of waiting, each one heavier than the last. I'd wake to the soft light filtering through my bedroom curtains, the birdsong outside, a reminder of the world moving on without me. But inside, the quiet pressed in, and I'd reach for my phone first thing, checking for missed notifications that never came. Emily's silence wasn't loud or angry. It was just there, like a door left ajar but never opened. I told myself to give her space, that young people get caught up in their lives, but the ache in my chest grew with every ring that went unanswered. By the end of the first week, I started leaving messages, my voice steady, but laced with that undercurrent of worry. "Hey, sweetie, just checking in. Hope work's going well. Call me when you can." I'd hang up, set the phone down on the kitchen counter, and busy myself with chores, the dishes clinking in the sink, the faint scent of lemon cleaner cutting through the air. But my mind wandered back to her, replaying our last conversation. Had I said something off? Pushed too hard about her visiting? No, it had been light, full of her excitement over a new client. Still, doubt crept in, whispering that maybe I'd been too clingy, too much the mom who couldn't let go. Friends at the school where I still taught part-time noticed the change in me. During lunch in the staff room, with the hum of the microwave and chatter around us, Sarah, my colleague for years, leaned over. "You seem distracted, Ellen. Everything okay with Emily?" I smiled, stirring my tea, the steam rising warm against my face. "Oh, just the usual. She's busy in the city." But her eyes held that knowing look, the one that said she saw through the words. That evening, alone in my garden, I knelt by the roses, pulling weeds with hands that trembled slightly. The soil was cool and damp from morning dew, and as I worked, memories surfaced. Times when Emily had needed space as a teen, locking her door after arguments about curfews or boys. "I need room to breathe, Mom," she'd said once, her voice muffled through the wood. I'd waited then too, and she'd come around with a hug and an apology. The second week brought texts into the mix too, short ones at first, hopeful. "Miss you, Em. Everything all right?" Sent with a heart emoji, the kind we used to share. Hours passed, then a day, and nothing. I'd check my phone during breaks at work, the classroom empty after the kids left, their drawings still taped to the walls. The silence stretched, making me question our history. Was this about her dad? Anniversaries of his passing always hit her hard, pulling for inward like a tide. Last year, she'd gone quiet for days, then called with tears, saying, "It just catches me sometimes, Mom. The missing him." I held the phone close, wishing I could wrap her in my arms. But this felt different, deeper, without the usual pullback. One rainy afternoon, I decided to drive up to her apartment, the wipers swishing rhythmically against the windshield as gray skies mirrored my mood. The 2-hour trip gave me time to think, the radio tuned low to soft folk songs that tugged at old heartstrings. I imagined her surprise, the way she'd laugh and pull me inside for tea. Parking on the familiar street, lined with brick buildings and overflowing trash bins, I climbed the stairs to her door, heart pounding softly. I knocked, the sound echoing in the narrow hall. No answer. I knocked again, calling out, "Emily? It's Mom." Still nothing. Peering through the peephole's reverse, I saw only shadows inside. A note slipped under the door later revealed she'd sublet the place for a week, gone to a work retreat. Relief mixed with hurt. Why hadn't she told me? I left a tin of cookies on the mat, driving home through the downpour, the rain blurring the road like unshed tears. Back in my kitchen that night, the smell of damp earth clinging to my coat, I poured a cup of chamomile and sat at the table. The house creaked in the wind, and I flipped through old photo albums, fingers tracing pictures of Emily's childhood, her first day of school, gap-toothed smile, our beach trips, sand in her hair. Those memories were lifelines, but they also stirred subtle tensions I'd overlooked. As she'd grown independent, there'd been moments of friction, like the time she canceled a visit last Christmas, citing a deadline. "I can't make it, Mom. Rain check." Her voice was apologetic, but rushed. I hid my disappointment, saying, "Of course, whenever you can." Deep down, it stung. The feeling that our time together was slipping away, prioritized less than her new life. The silence deepened into the third week, and I found myself confiding in my sister over the phone, the line crackling slightly as she listened from her home across the state. "It's like she's vanished, Ruth. No calls, no texts." Her pause was gentle. "Then maybe she's going through something. Give it time." But time felt like an enemy now, each day etching lines of worry on my face. I'd walk to the mailbox in the mornings, the gravel crunching underfoot, hoping for a letter in her looping handwriting. Empty. Always. In the garden, under the afternoon sun that finally broke through, I'd prune the hedges, the clippers snipping like unanswered questions. Emily had loved this garden once, helping me plant tulips that bloomed in spring. "It'll come back stronger," I'd tell her about the bulbs. Was that what this was? A season of quiet before growth? Subtle doubts turned to self-reflection. Nights spent in my armchair by the window, a blanket over my lap as stars dotted the sky. Had I been too focused on my own routines, not listening enough to her stresses? Work in the city was tough, she'd mentioned once. Long hours, a boss who picnicked. "It's draining, Mom," she'd sighed during a call months back. I'd offered advice, suggested she talk to him, but maybe she needed more than words. Guilt settled in, soft but persistent, like the fog that rolled in from the nearby hills. I tried emailing next. Shared? Driving back, the sun setting in oranges and pinks, I gripped the wheel tighter, the silence now a companion I couldn't shake. Memories of our closer calls surfaced too, the argument 2 years prior when she'd accused me of hovering after a breakup. "You treat me like I'm still a kid, Mom." Her tone sharp over the phone, followed by days of coolness before reconciliation. "I'm sorry, I just worry," I'd said, and we'd laughed it off with a promised lunch. But now, without that bridge, the old wounds felt raw. In the garden silence, sitting on the bench with tea cooling beside me, I whispered to the empty air, "What did I miss, Em?" The birds chirped on, oblivious as the weight of unspoken words built like storm clouds. The rising conflict wasn't explosive. It was the slow unraveling, thread by thread, of the connection I'd held so dear. Friends suggested professional help, a therapist for the anxiety, but I resisted, clinging to the belief it was temporary. Instead, I journaled by lamplight, pages filling with questions and memories, the way she'd call after bad dreams as a child, voice small. "I'm scared, Mom." I'd soothe her then, as I longed to now. The house echoed with absence, meals eaten alone at the table, the chair opposite empty. Rainy evenings brought the worst, water drumming on the roof like insistent knocks. I'd stand at the window, watching it streak the glass, hoping each drop carried her voice back to me. By now, the silence had woven into my dreams, waking me with a start phone in hand. Texts went unanswered, voicemails piled up softly. "And please, just let me know you're okay." The plea escaped in one, my voice breaking the calm I tried to maintain. Work suffered subtly, lessons planned but mind elsewhere, students' questions pulling me back. "Mrs. Harper, are you all right?" a girl asked once, her concern touching. I nodded, smiling through it, but inside the conflict raged quietly. Love versus fear, patience versus pain. It was a rising tide. Subtle waves eroding the shore of my peace, memories and dialogues from the past clashing with the present void. One last attempt came on a crisp morning, the air sharp with fall's edge. I called her work line, heart fluttering. The receptionist was polite. "She's out today, but I'll pass on the message." Message, as if words on paper could bridge this gap. Walking the garden paths, leaves falling like forgotten promises, I felt the tension coil tighter. Subtle hints from her last visit replayed, her distraction, eyes distant during dinner. "Everything good, sweetie?" I asked. "Yeah, just tired," she'd replied, fork pushing food around her plate. Had that been the start? The conflict built not in shouts, but in these quiet reflections, the slow burn of a mother's heart stretched thin by silence. It was the 5th week, a Thursday that dawned with a heavy sky, the kind that promises rain but holds back just to tease. I'd spent the morning in the kitchen, the familiar scent of brewing coffee grounding me as I stared at the calendar on the wall, red circles marking days without her voice. The worry had become a constant hum now, like the fridge's soft buzz in the quiet house. I decided that morning, with the resolve born of desperation, that I couldn't wait anymore. I'd drive up again, not leave cookies this time, but stay until I saw her face. As I packed a small bag, her favorite scarf, a thermos of soup, I felt a mix of fear and determination, the wheels steady under my hands as the miles unwound. The city greeted me with its usual rush, horns blaring and sidewalks crowded, but my focus narrowed to her building. This time, her car was parked out front, a small blue sedan I'd helped her buy used. Relief washed over me like a warm wave, but it was short-lived, chased by nerves as I climbed the stairs. The door opened after my third knock, and there she was, Emily, looking thinner, shadows under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Mom," she said, her voice flat, not the bright hello I dreamed. She stepped aside, letting me in, the apartment dim with curtains drawn, the air stale like unopened windows. We stood in the living room, the couch sagging under a pile of sketch pads and takeout containers. I set the thermos down, my hands needing something to do. "Em, I've been so worried. Weeks without a word. I thought something terrible happened." My words hung there, soft but urgent. She crossed her arms, leaning against the wall, her gaze fixed on the floor. The rain started then, a gentle patter against the pane, mirroring the tension building between us. "I needed space, Mom. Time to think." Her tone was even, but edged with something raw, like a wound not yet healed. I sat on the edge of the couch, gesturing for her to join me. She hesitated, then sank down, the cushions shifting under her weight. The silence stretched, broken only by the rain's rhythm. "Space from what, sweetie? Talk to me, please." My voice trembled just a little, the plea escaping despite my calm. She looked up then, eyes meeting mine, and in them I saw a storm, hurt, confusion, betrayal. "I found something, Mom. Something you should have told me years ago." Her words landed like stones in still water, rippling through me. I waited, heart pounding softly, as she reached for a drawer in the coffee table, pulling out a faded envelope, yellowed with age. The envelope was addressed to Tom, her father, in his own handwriting, postmarked from before they were married. Emily's hands shook as she handed it to me. I opened it slowly, the paper crinkling, and there it was. A letter from Tom's sister, Ruth's counterpart on his side, confessing a family secret. Tom had a son, born from a brief relationship in his early 20s before he met me. The boy, now a man named Daniel in his 30s, had reached out years ago after Tom's death, wanting to connect. But Tom, in his final months, had asked me to keep it quiet, to shield Emily from the complication, the pain of divided loyalties. I'd honored that, burying the letters in a box in the attic, telling myself it was protection, not deception. As I read, the room faded, the rain louder now, drumming insistently. Emily's voice cut through, quiet but steady. Why didn't you tell me, Mom? After Dad died, when I was hurting so much, you let me think our family was just us. No secrets, no one else out there who shared his blood. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over, and she wiped them away with the back of her hand. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the weight of years crashing down. I promised him. He was so sick, so scared you'd feel like you weren't enough. He wanted to spare you that. My own tears came then, hot and unbidden, as I reached for her hand. She pulled back slightly, the distance a chasm. The conversation unfolded slowly, like peeling layers from an onion, each one stinging more than the last. She told me how she'd tracked Daniel down online, a quiet life in a neighboring state, married with kids of his own. He's nice, Mom. Sent me photos, Dad's smile in his face. But it hurt knowing you kept him from me, from us. Her voice cracked on the last word and she stood, pacing to the window, the city blurred beyond the glass. I followed her, standing beside her, the cool pain against my palm. I thought I was doing right, protecting our memories, but I see now it was my fear too. Afraid it would change everything we'd built. The rain sheeted down, washing the world outside as if trying to cleanse the air between us. We talked for hours, the thermos forgotten, soup cooling, untouched. Emily shared her whirlwind of her discovery, the late night scrolling ancestry sites, the first email to Daniel, tentative and full of questions. I felt so alone, Mom, like the ground under me wasn't solid anymore. She stopped calling because the betrayal burned too hot, mixed with grief for the father she thought she knew. Every time the phone rang, I think of you hiding this, and I couldn't face it. Her confession came in whispers, confessional, the kind that binds as much as breaks. I listened, nodding, my heart aching with regret. Visuals from our past flickered in my mind. The garden where I'd buried those letters metaphorically, the kitchen talks where truths stayed unspoken. As the afternoon waned, the light shifting to a soft gray, Emily sat back down, pulling her knees up. Daniel wants to meet, thinks we should know each other. The words hung, a key event turning the silence into possibility. I took her hand this time and she let me, our fingers intertwining like old times. Then we'll meet him, together. No more hiding. Relief flickered in her eyes, tentative but real, as the first crack in the wall appeared.
A vent crystallized, her decision to reach out alone, the silence a cocoon for processing the shock. Now, with me there, the cocoon cracked open, light seeping in. We cried together then, quiet sobs that released the pent-up storm. The apartment felt less dim, the curtains parted slightly, letting in the fading day. I'm sorry, Mom, for shutting you out. Her words were sincere, hopeful, as she leaned her head on my shoulder. I stroked her hair, the familiar texture grounding me. And I'm sorry for the secret. It was never meant to hurt. Forgiveness hovered, not fully landed yet, but close, a turning in the road from silence to shared light. As evening fell, the city lights twinkling on, we planned. A call to Daniel, perhaps. A visit. The journey through silence had led here, to this revelation that reshaped our story. The betrayal wasn't malice, it was human frailty, layers of protection gone awry.
In the quiet after our talk, with raindrops tracing paths down the window, I felt the turning point settle, a key unlocked, truths revealed, the path forward emerging from the shadows. But the depth of it lingered into the night. Emily made up the couch for me, insisting I stay, the blankets soft and worn. We talked more, voices low as the clock ticked past midnight. She described the moment she found the envelope, heart racing, world tilting. It was like Dad's ghost whispering secrets. I shared my side the day the first letter arrived, Tom's weary eyes as he read it. He cried, said he wished he could have done better by everyone. The dialogue wove us closer, mending threads frayed by time. Morning brought clarity, sun breaking through clouds, the kitchenette alive with the sizzle of eggs. Over breakfast, Emily laughed, a small sound but genuine, recalling a silly memory of Tom teaching her to whistle. He had secrets, but he was still Dad. The hidden truth, once a wall, became a bridge, connecting us to a larger family. As I hugged her goodbye, promising to call Daniel together, the silence of weeks felt like a distant echo. The turning point had arrived, raw and revealing, shifting our journey from isolation to understanding. The drive home that Sunday morning was different, the sun breaking through the clouds in fits and starts, casting golden patches on the highway. Emily had hugged me tightly at the door, her apartment behind us smelling of fresh coffee and the faint trace of rain from the night before. "Call me tonight, Mom. No more silence." Her words lingered as I pulled away, the city shrinking in my rearview mirror. The revelation about Daniel, Tom's son, her half-brother, hung in the air like a new chapter waiting to be written. It wasn't easy. The hurt from the secret still echoed, but for the first time in weeks, the silence between us felt bridged, tentative but real. Back in my kitchen, I unpacked the thermos, the soup now cold, but the memory warm. I sat at the table, the wooden surface scarred from years of family meals, and let the emotions wash over me. Regret first, heavy and familiar, for keeping the truth buried. I thought it was love, shielding her from more pain after losing her dad. But now I saw it as a wall, built from my own fears of change. Tears came quietly, dripping onto the tablecloth as I whispered to the empty room. I should have trusted her strength. The garden outside called, so I wandered there, the soil soft under my feet, the roses nodding in the breeze. Kneeling by the bed, I pulled a few weeds, each tug a release, processing the betrayal not as malice, but as a mistake born of protection. That evening, our call came as promised, her voice clearer, less guarded. "I talked to Daniel today, Mom. Told him about you." We spoke for an hour, the phone warm against my ear, sharing the day's small things, the way the sun hit the leaves, a recipe she tried. But underneath, the processing deepened. "It hurts that you didn't tell me sooner, Mom," she admitted, her pause filled with the soft hum of her apartment fan. "But I get it now. Dad's choice, your promise." I nodded, though she couldn't see, my voice steady. "It was wrong to carry it alone. Forgive me, Em?" Silence then. "I do, Mom, and I'm sorry for shutting you out. That was my wall too." Forgiveness flowed like tea from a pot, warm and soothing, easing the ache that had settled in my chest. The days that followed were a gentle unraveling of the knots. I'd wake to texts from her, good morning notes with photos of her sketches, the city skyline in the background. Work at school felt lighter, the children's laughter pulling me from reflections. During lunch, I'd share bits with Sarah, the steam from my mug rising as I said, "We're talking again, and there's more to the story, a brother she never knew." Her eyes widened, but she just hugged me, saying, "Healing takes time." Evenings brought longer calls, where we'd process the layers. Emily described her feelings towards Daniel, curiosity mixed with caution. He's family, but not like us. How do we fit him in? I'd listen, offering one step at a time, like planting seeds. They grow slow. A week later, we planned the meeting, simple and close to home. Daniel agreed to drive down, his voice on speaker warm, a hint of Tom's cadence in his hello. I've wanted this for years. Emily and I prepared together over video, her face on my screen as we laughed about what to cook.
lasagna, Tom's recipe, layers of pasta like our unfolding truths. The night before, rain tapped the window as I lay in bed, the sheets cool against my skin. Acceptance crept in then, quiet and profound. The secret no longer a burden, but a door open to more love, not less. I felt peace settling, the calm after a long storm, gratitude for the journey that brought us here. The day arrived crisp and clear, autumn leaves crunching under tires as Daniel pulled up. He was tall, like Tom, with the same easy smile, stepping out with a bottle of wine and nerves in his eyes. Emily met him at the door, a hesitant hug that turned genuine, while I watched from the kitchen, the oven warm with baking bread. "Come in, sit," I said, my voice steady, guiding us to the table. The conversation started slow, like warming water. Questions about his life, his kids, the adoption that shaped him. "I've always wondered about my dad," he shared, his hands around a mug of tea, steam curling up. "Me too. This feels right somehow." As lunch unfolded, the emotional processing wove through the talk. Laughter came first. Stories of Tom, how he'd fix cars with a whistle, the garden tools he'd leave scattered. Then deeper waters, the pain of absence for Daniel, the shock for Emily. "Finding out felt like losing Dad again," she said softly, her fork pausing. I reached across, touching her hand. "But it adds to him, doesn't it? More pieces of the man we loved." Daniel's eyes misted. He wrote me once, said he was proud, even from afar. Forgiveness circled us, not just words, but actions, the passing of bread, the shared glances. I confessed again, voice low. I kept it hidden to protect, but I see now it isolated us all. He smiled gently. "You did your best. That's family." The afternoon stretched in the garden where we walked paths Emily knew by heart. Daniel knelt by the roses, inhaling their scent as she pointed out the ones we'd planted together. "Mom taught me patience here," she said, her arm linking his. Acceptance bloomed like the flowers, peace in the silence between words, gratitude for this unexpected branch on our tree. Inside, as rain threatened but held off, we sat in the living room, photo albums open. Tom's face smiled from pages, bridging us. "He'd want this," I murmured, and they agreed, the room filled with a quiet strength. That evening, after Daniel left with promises of more visits, Emily stayed. We washed dishes side by side, suds bubbling, the water warm on my hands. "Thank you for coming clean, Mom. It healed something in me." Her words were sincere, confessional, as she dried a plate. I turned, hugging her, the door to the backyard open, letting in the cool air. "And your silence taught me to listen better. We're stronger now." Peace wrapped around us, the calm sadness of before, giving way to gratitude, for forgiveness earned, acceptance embraced. In the weeks after, our bond deepened, calls daily again, but richer, laced with stories of Daniel, his family's holiday invites, shared traits like a love for sketching. I'd reflect in my armchair, tea steaming, the window showing the garden's quiet growth. Emotional processing continued in small ways, journaling the feelings, the shift from hurt to hope. One night, under stars peeking through clouds, Emily visited, and we sat on the porch, blankets over our laps. "I forgive the past," she said simply, "and I accept this bigger family." Tears came, but joyful, the resolution settling like dew on leaves, peaceful, renewing. Friends noticed the change, their coffee shared with smiles. "You look lighter," Sarah said one afternoon, the schoolyard empty. I nodded, sugaring. Forgiveness does that. At home, routines returned, but transformed. The table set for calls, the garden a place of shared plans. Gratitude filled me for the silence that forced truth, for the journey through pain to this place of understanding. Emily's laughter echoed again, in person during weekends, her head on my shoulder as we watched rain from the kitchen. "We're okay, Mom. Better than before." Acceptance wasn't instant. Moments of doubt lingered, like shadows at dusk, but each talk chipped them away. The way Daniel's emails brought Tom's stories alive, Emily's desire revealed, expanded our world. The door closing softly after Emily's visits felt like closure on the old hurts, opening to hope. One quiet evening, candlelight flickering on the mantel, I called her just to say, "I love you." "Love you too, Mom," she replied, her voice full. In that exchange, the resolution crystallized, emotional waves settled into peaceful shores, forgiveness a gentle current carrying us forward. We had accepted the full story, scars and all, emerging grateful for the strength it built. Looking back now, months after that rainy afternoon in Emily's apartment, the silence feels like a distant memory, a shadow that passed through our lives to let in more light. I sit in my garden often these days, the sun warming the bench where Emily and I used to plan our plantings, the air filled with the quiet hum of bees among the roses. The house isn't empty anymore. It's fuller, with Daniel's visits bringing new stories, his laughter echoing Tom's in the kitchen as we share meals. The door closes softly after they leave, but it's not with ache. It's with a warmth that lingers, like the smell of tea steeping on the counter. I've learned so much from that journey through the quiet. Secrets, even kept with the best intentions, can build walls higher than we mean them to. I thought I was protecting Emily by honoring Tom's wish, but true love doesn't hide. It shares the weight, trusts the other's heart to hold it. Forgiveness came slowly for us both, her for my silence, me for hers, but it taught me that healing isn't about erasing the hurt, it's about walking through it together, hand in hand. In the calm of these evenings, with rain sometimes pattering gently on the leaves, I feel gratitude deep in my bones for the daughter who came back stronger, for the brother who added color to our family portrait, for the peace that replaced the fog. Emily calls every few days now, her voice bright with updates on her designs, plans for our next gathering. "Mom, Daniel's teaching me to fix the car like Dad did," she said last week, laughing over the line. We've grown closer, not just in words, but in understanding. The subtle ways grief lingers, the beauty in unexpected connections. Life lessons whisper in these moments. Hold your loved ones loosely enough to let them breathe, but tightly enough to weather the storms. Families aren't perfect. They're mosaics of joys and scars, pieced together with patience and grace. As I pour my evening tea, steam rising like hopes renewed, I reflect on how far we've come. The day my daughter stopped calling was a breaking point, but it led to mending, to a love that's deeper for having been tested. If you're facing your own silence with a child, a sibling, anyone dear, know this: reach out, listen without walls, and trust the pull of the heart. It may take time, but the quiet can give way to voices again, stronger and more honest. In my garden silence, under the stars, I find hope, gratitude for the journey, and faith that love always finds its way home.